Hello everybody, welcome to Trains and Viatic. Hiya Anthony, hiya David, and hiya anybody else who is out there today. So, first things first, thank you everyone for joining me on a Sunday. And I will now explain why it's a Sunday now. My videos are going to change to Sundays for the foreseeable future. And that's because I have managed to get myself a temporary job. I'm not going to go into details on what it is, as I'm not sure if I'm allowed to or not. I haven't signed official secrecy act or anything like that. But all I'll say is it's helping the public in the time of its need. So it's something I wasn't expecting to do. It's definitely a temporary job. I'm still applying for proper jobs as I'm going through, but it's money coming into my pocket. So I will be working every other Sunday. I know you can't see me at the moment as I don't have my webcam. I want to do some screen sharing and then go into the Raspberry Pi, but I wanted to chat to you first. So yeah, for streams on for videos are now going to be Sundays at 8. I don't think anybody else publish at this time. So let's go on to what I'm talking about. So if I press this button here and actually take that across there so I can see what's going on. So if I put that there and we can go onto the PC. So last week we had I showed you the introduction into how to use a Raspberry Pi, and of course I get to email when I'm talking. You can always guarantee that that's going to happen. So last week I did the introduction to the Raspberry Pi, and I thought I'd go a bit more detail on here and then just quickly run through what is going to be happening in future videos. So if you didn't have any problems with going for Raspberry Pi, come directly to the raspberrypi.org. That's a website where you can get all the answers. I'll go into the hardware and show you all the different options you have for the Raspberry Pi, as there are so many different ideas about. This here is for model 4B, which give us two HDMI outputs, USB, and Ethernet. I got from model before that. You then have the Raspberry Pi 400, which is more of a keyboard design. So it can do everything the normal Raspberry Pi can do, but this is a much slimmer form. So you have a keyboard, mouse, and others. Keyboard, mouse, and that's all you need. And then something I'll be looking at a later date is the Raspberry Pi Pico. This is it's a microcontroller, so it can do interesting activities for it. So what I'm going to do is mute for a second and move across to my other desk so that I can actually get the Raspberry Pi up and show you what we can do with it. So I'll just quickly mute for 2 seconds. So just sorry about that. I was just moving my mouse, my microphone. So I'll now turn to capture card and we can load up the Raspberry Pi. So I've moved over to the Raspberry Pi and you should be able to see everything I can see. I can't really see the volume, and let me just scroll down to make sure I can hear everyone can hear okay. So there's a 6-second delay, so you should be back now. So this is a Raspberry Pi desktop, and this is where about most of the activities will happen. So just off of desk thing, you have programming, you have Genie, which is more for children, and Thorn, which is for beginners. Then you have Internet, which gives you Chrome. One common problem with this is Google Earth can be upside down. Then you have VLC media player, so you can play any form of media you want. You then have an image editor accessory, so here you can do file manager, PDF thing. You can run diagnostics if you're having problem, and SD card copier. Then you have add remove software, advanced setting, keyboard and mouse, main editor, printer settings so you can print from this, Raspberry Pi config section, which is quite important. So this is whereabouts you can change over bits. So you can choose if you boot into this screen or into the terminal thing. Auto login, you can boot for the network and have a splash screen. You then have different ways of displaying things. This is one of the impressive things with a Raspberry Pi. So I've enabled everything here. You can connect a camera to it and share it as a webcam. That's impressive. You've got several forms of ways to enter the Raspberry Pi without having a keyboard or mouse, so you can access it over the internet. For what I'm doing at the moment, it's not necessary, but for future projects it is. Then you've got this I2C. This is quite an interesting protocol. This allows things like sensors and screens, dot matrix screens, and some other types of screens to connect to your Raspberry Pi. You then have serial port, serial console, which are old-fashioned communication things, and then you can access your GPIOs remotely. We then have a performance bit whereby you can overclock your CPU, you can overclock your memory, you can put a fan on and other bits, and then finally you can change your settings. Then for other interesting bit is this bit here. It's called the terminal. This will be used in later projects, but like I said in the earlier thing in last week, is all commands start with superuser do, and I believe it is, that's the one I want in output. There's a command to actually see what the pins do. So that's what we can do with that. So I'm going to be very optimistic now. I'll get this ready for next video whereabout I'll be setting up for using this to program for trains. So I'm going to go to Google, agree over permissions, JRMI, I think that's the correct one, and search for that. There we go, exactly what I want. So this is the software I'm going to be using on this Raspberry Pi. You got quite a bit of software along the side. You've got Decoder Pro, which is what I'll be using to set up decoders, so I can set up speakers and functions. Then the Panel Pro, which we're going to be potentially using on the Garden Railway. Then you've got a few other bits. So you choose the most up-to-date one. And then download it. You need to choose which operating system you want. And we're getting it down the bottom of the screen. I haven't tried this before, so this could be quite interesting. Also, I have my iPad in front of the way of a little bit at the bottom, so I can't see it that well. So I'm just downloading this. This is over Wi-Fi, so it's a bit slower than if it was over wired. So we're opening this, and this is where it can all go wrong. So it's opening the program. This version of Raspberry Pi OS is using what do you call it, Java natively, so that should just work. If I was on the Raspberry Pi 4, it would be much quicker. So we got the folder. And it might be as simple as loading that. Execute. And let's see what that actually does. Okay, I'll execute in terminal. And I think I've done something wrong. So you got quite a few things, so I'm going to try to find what actually installs it. There are very good instructions online of how to do this. I just thought I would have a try. And that's looking interesting. Now we just open the next program. So what I'll do is I'll read up, see what how to do it, and then hopefully next Sunday at 8 I'll have a video showing you how to set up JMRI properly on the Raspberry Pi. So I'll quickly go across to the other computer. Sorry for that. If I go to that one, we go and get my thingy up. And I'm going to call it today here. Thank you everyone for turning up. Always great to have so many people out there. Yeah, I got a new job. It's interesting. And that's all I'm going to say. But thank you everybody for being there. And I'll see you all next time. Thank you very much. Richard.